regardless of the landlords he had known, heartless men who turned families out on the street in the middle of winter. He had been under the thumb of dozens of them, he said, but never ceased to be amazed by their ruthlessness and trickery. But the day was coming, he promised us, a better day, when nothing we owned would be seized by landlords because we couldn't pay the rent. That day might be just around the corner, Jennie said, and we all nodded and huddled around Dad and told him you never knew when good times were coming, when your luck was bound to change. It wasn't as if he had it easy. Raising 4 boys was hard enough, but when one of those boys was more trouble than the other 3 combined, it might as well be 7 or 8 that he was taking care of. He looked at me, and I tried to smile. It's not Wayne's fault either, Dad said. If truth be told, it was only because of bad luck that the deck was stacked against us, not because of him and me. Soon the others were all conceding that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't the fault of his wife or the rest of his children. None of us could help how we were born. Still, by this time, everyone was huddled around me, and I was crying and promising to do my best with what I had. I couldn't be blamed for all the things that were wrong with me, nor could Jennie, any more than Jennie's mother could be blamed for having a daughter who'd had a boy like me. I was 7 that November when we were tossed from our apartment in St. John's. I had lived in 20 houses by then. I don't remember a lot of them, but most of them were scattered along a couple of roads in a place called the Goulds, about an hour away from town. It wasn't much of a place, not even a village, but it was where Jennie was born and where her parents, Lucy and Ned, still lived, on Petty Harbor Road. On that last night in town, Jennie said she remembered all the houses. She said she could give you directions to the bathroom in almost any house on Petty Harbor Road. It wasn't much to brag about, but it was true. We boys never knew when we were leaving or exactly where we were moving next, just that we were always 1 car breakdown or appliance repair away from having an eviction notice slip beneath our door in the middle of the night by a landlord who, Dad said, was too gutless to look him in the eye. Too gutless, Craig said. We don't always have a car, Dad said, but we always have Wayne, and there's no telling when he'll have to be repaired. Repairing me seemed to be impossible because no one seemed to know why I was sick. A doctor I could not remember having been to see had once said I had a nervous cough. Jennie seemed to think I had a nervous cough because I was nervous all the time. She said she had heard of other people who had nervous coughs, but she never named them. Calling it a nervous cough made it sound like I was constantly trying to clear my throat, but that wasn't the case. The cough was so deep, so loud, and so relentless that each of my 3 brothers had tried to kill me to shut me up. Once, Ken had shoved a half-used bar of soap into my mouth when he was trying to get to sleep. Soon, though I was no longer coughing and Ken was drifting off, I was frothing soap bubbles. I don't know which of my brothers alerted my parents, but when they saw me, they took me to be having a seizure. They were distressed, but not especially surprised, as they had, by this time, all but reconciled themselves to the idea that I would not make it out of childhood. They called a nurse named Dot Chafe, who lived nearby. She had seen seizures before and knew I was not having one. Exploring my mouth with a pair of tweezers, she was able to remove what was left of the soap. Another time, I was sharing the back seat of one of our family cars with Craig when the door swung open as my father turned to go up an especially steep hill. Craig pushed and kicked me from the car and watched through the back windshield as I tumbled down the hill until I came up against a mailbox, miraculously unhurt but for skinned knees and elbows. Craig said he'd done it not just to spare himself my endless hacking, but to see what me flying down the hill would look like. And Brian once pinned me to the kitchen floor and jammed a plastic egg cup into my mouth, so hard Dad couldn't pry it loose.